Hey, I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of House of Bricks Live, where we teach people you have two choices in life. With our experiences we face, you can either carry them with you and they weigh you down, or you can lay them down and build a strong foundation. Today, I'm looking forward to introducing my next guest. Drew is a four-time founder, former VC, fintech sales leader, and now investor and head of sales at Klear Capital, where he's backing manufacturers and critical supply chains around the world. More recently, that includes over 100 million in supply chain tied to aerospace and defense. Drew, welcome to the House of Bricks.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. I just have to say, what the truck, man. I'm happy to be here.
What the truck. All right. We're
Let's
blending
go.
two initiatives here, and love to and actually, as I was looking at, your background and what you guys do, there's probably, some way we can collaborate, right, on our mission with what the truck and what you're doing. But listen, let's jump right in. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So, I've been at this crazy entrepreneurship game for about 20 years. And no, I wasn't like, I didn't come out of the womb an entrepreneur, but, I've had a crazy journey from the music business. I was 16 years old. I started a record label with a handful of goons from my high school, and it was called Bigger Brush Records. I got accepted to University of Michigan in the music school. I was an opera singer, studied recording arts, spent 4 years at the University of Michigan. I started a startup at that time with a Grammy Award-winning record producer in LA. We had this idea of like, what if you could invest in a band? This is 2007, okay? So the internet was still like kind of new, especially a very different internet than what it is today. And so we were like, well, what if we could use the internet to invest in stock in a band, right? Was kind of the idea, mybandstock.com. So we ran with that for 4.5 years, moved to LA, raised a seed round. At one point, we had like 15 different people running around trying to build the music revolution, which was our tagline. And at that point, we moved to LA, and as many times happens, a capitalized startup doesn't work out. And you reach that point of failure and look yourself in the mirror, have a nervous breakdown, and have no idea who you are anymore at 23 years old, right? So that happened to me and a couple of my co-founders. It was a tough experience, but we learned from it, pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps, and we all got jobs. So I ended up operating at a bunch of really amazing high-growth startups, a company called Groove Shark, a company called Mobile Roadie, and then a company called Fullscreen. Fullscreen ended up getting sold to AT&T for almost $1 billion. Came back to school, started another startup with my brother called snapsuits.com, custom suits for $250 delivered in 14 days. Very early days of Shopify, e-commerce, Facebook ads. We had 800% return on our ad spend on Facebook ads. My brother and I grew that company, started not getting along many times as brothers or family members in business do. And we decided to go our separate ways. I went the VC route. He kept running Snapsuits. I think he actually made the right decision. He ended up working in e-com logistics. His company got bought by Shopify. He did really well. I'm still waiting for returns in the early stage VC game, which, 7 years in, it takes a long time for those investments to come to fruition. So I went and started a VC firm with a couple partners, grew that up to 30 million under management. Met a woman that I'm married to now, moved to New Zealand, came back, and thus the rest of the story has unwound. I'm also lecturing in Michigan now. I teach startup sales at the Center for Entrepreneurship. If you're a University of Michigan student listening, take my class. It's every single semester. Would love to have you.
Well, so much there, right? Like if you can't sell an entrepreneurship, you're not an entrepreneur. So that's probably the first step people need to learn, right? Like
bullseye.
You have nothing, so you're selling something. You got to make it happen. And you said you weren't born an entrepreneur. No one is, but take us back to that company in 2007. Is there anything
Sure.
now you would have done differently?
I would have done nothing differently, actually. Of course, there's a million things you run through in your head right after it happens, the failure, when it ends. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. But. Outside of me teaching myself to code, like the way it happened was the way it happened. I couldn't build my own company. I had to raise money or find a technical co-founder or whatever. Actually, my other co-founder in that company, he swore to himself that he would never do a startup again where he needed to raise money to build the product. So he decided to learn Ruby on Rails and became a coder and built his next company by being a web developer.
That's a true
that's something.
That's a true
founder. I mean, he is a beast. He is an absolute beast. He just exited his company after about 6 years of building. He's a beast, absolute beast. He was dual music and jazz drumming. He was dual music and Ross School of Business. So absolute freak of nature, like intellectually, and then learned how to code. Could have been a CS major in engineering if he wanted to be, right? And then he went the true founder route. I went more of the capital VC, how do I get the allocations to back the entrepreneurs route? We had very different sort of paths after the startup. He was just at my house this last weekend. We're still very, very close. But yeah, from that perspective, in terms of what would I have done differently, it's kind of hard to say because it's so far in the past, but it's hard when you have to rely on other people to build your company and you can't build it yourself, right? So how you choose business partners, how you build along the way, the team that you build is really important.
Yeah, and we have this segment here, kind of talking about testing, failing, learning, and growing. I mean, you've started 4 companies. I mean, it's probably a million different stories you can tell, but the one in New Zealand kind of piqued my interest a little bit. You probably had, tell us what was going through your mind at the time, what the test was, and ultimately the failure and what you learned.
Yeah, I mean, what happened in New Zealand was a first really major encounter with trusting someone or something wholly in a massive way without realizing how one person could like make your life an absolute hell, right? I am very happy that almost every business partner I've ever had up until this moment was like a really amazing person. Maybe we didn't get along. Maybe we said some things we didn't mean, like whatever, like life, right? Mm-hmm. But like up until that moment, I didn't realize like, oh, you could hitch your wagon to something that could like drive you not into the ground, but like below ground, right? And so that was a lesson that like, you have to trust in business. Nothing happens without trust. You can't contract your way into never being screwed over. It's not possible, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point along the entrepreneurial journey, someone's going to try to bury you, right? And that's a crazy thing to kind of realize, right? And I never hope it happens to anyone, but it's always good to kind of think about, well, what are the risks of me saying yes, And so for me, going to New Zealand, leaving my very successful venture firm, amazing partners, like I left all that behind to pursue a dream of moving to New Zealand and joining a venture fund there, and it didn't work out. So then I had to go, well, now what, right? And we decided to move back to the United States because I just couldn't quite get an opportunity going in another country. Turns out moving to another country where you don't know anyone is really hard. Didn't realize that until I lived it. But what was going through my mind at that moment? A lot of self-doubt, and a lot of how did I get here? And a lot of how do I get myself out? And so that was a pretty truly life-changing experience for my wife and I. We feel very fortunate that we banded together and we're really strong through all of that experience. And we came out better people. We came out having grown through something super difficult. And I think that every experience that I've had as an entrepreneur where I've experienced loss has been a moment of growth and an understanding of like, how can I get better and stronger. I've had, I teach this entrepreneurship class, and the students were blown away by the fact that like people have failure and it's really bad. And like,
Yeah.
you have to recover from that. Right. They were like, oh my gosh, because all they see is TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. Yeah, everyone's crushing it. It's like, no, like people don't crush it all the time. In fact, you can lose your grandma's investments. She put 10 grand in your company. Like that can happen. And so these kids are like, oh my God, because they're just not used to hearing about these things.
Yeah, when I get, since I started House of Bricks, right, we get all these founders coming and reaching out to us, hey, can you help me with my pitch deck? And what I try to do initially is talk them out of the idea. I say no,
why are you doing this?
just to see
Yeah.
like how bought
Yeah.
in are you? Because you're going to hear no 90% of the time.
Yeah,
And 9 out
100%.
of 10 startups fail. So if you aren't able to handle the first rejection, you might as well,
Yeah.
you might as well just stop. So,
Yeah.
there's one thing you said, which I thought was interesting, which is, business partners or people in business are kind of like family until they're not.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things we teach in the House of Bricks community is like the importance of getting the right foundation for your business right out of the gate. What's the corporate structure? What's the operating agreement? In the beginning, people are passing out equity like a Pez dispenser, I'll give you 10%,
That's right.
you 10%. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's all fine until things start to actually take off. And it's, well, I do this and I should get 20%. And so talk to us about the importance of, even in your entrepreneurship class, of that strong foundation and what problems could come out later on when the honeymoon's over.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I think are really interesting. And I touched on this before, but no contract or perfect arrangement will ever like keep you safe no matter what. If someone decides to just like walk away and burn it to the ground, you have to get in front of a judge to have it changed.
Yeah.
So contracts are great, but like if you got that 50 grand to fight someone who's way more powerful than you, then like great. Like you can eventually get it in front of someone who will preside, right? But guess what? Like if you disagree on X, Y, Z, ABC, like the chances are that you'll go litigate against that are right quite small, right? So that's a thing, right? In terms of building the foundation, I think that there's pros and cons with working with people who really well and maybe you're friends with before, but you also like, you do know them. You like really truly know them, see them, understand them, seen them at their worst, right? And there's a benefit to that. Now, can you disagree and not be friends afterwards? That's also a thing, right? Because ultimately, like personal and business combined together, a lot of times the business, the money, the security, that stuff is going to end up being ahead, right? Now, the foundation, the things that you can do to make sure that everyone is on the same page. I'm a big fan of, some sort of vesting for everyone, right? And the vesting on the same schedule across the board is built in so that if someone leaves, there's a way to decide what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone leaves the ship early for whatever reason, it's like, okay, well, you don't own 10% of the company. You own 1.5% because you're leaving, right? These structures are created so that the business can continue, right? Now, let me tell you this. They're not created so that you can wipe someone out and give them nothing, right?
Right.
No one agrees to a vesting agreement because you're like, yeah, sure, you can wipe me out and give me nothing, right? So the idea around vesting is so that once this thing goes on, there's still something for someone and the party could continue. and you're not dragging down a ship with a bunch of empty seats, which is basically what happens if you're a co-founder and you own 15% of the company and you leave the company, they can't raise more money or like do anything else to that cap table because everyone's going to go, who's this guy? Oh, they left. Well, why do they own that percentage of the company? Right. So some stuff like that could really help, in making sure that there's a way to compensate for everyone's involvement without like wiping someone out completely. Because
agreed. And, that is always a conversation. But again, it's better to have it. The earlier you have it, the easier it will be. The more that's built, the more complexities to it, the more ownership someone may feel later on versus what they felt at the beginning. But there was something else you said about, at the time, kind of through your journey, you didn't understand really how to underwrite risk. So talk to us more about that and kind of what you see. I mean, with your experience, you've been on the founder side, you've been on the VC side. Like, what is the one thing that you see people get wrong and how, or founders, and how should they underwrite that risk?
Great segue. The biggest risk you'll ever take in your life is doing something completely new that's never been done before, right? I think that's really hard for people to understand. And like I still, even as a VC, even as a founder, that's really hard to come to terms with, right? So that's kind of like number one, like underwriting risk, doing something new, really hard. Getting into business school, learning how to be a consultant, getting a job as a consultant, like that's not very risky. You just have to do the work and climb through the rungs. Like you don't have to question very much. You just do that, right? That's great.
Yeah.
And totally fine and amazing. Like go have a career, all that kind of stuff. Love that. Doing something completely new is really hard, and you will most likely fail. You most likely won't get it across the finish line, right? So that's number one. Number two, when it comes to underwriting risk, is, you have to accept a certain amount of failure in underwriting something that's new, right? Mm-hmm. VCs do it with like 80-20, like 20% of my companies will be something, 80% won't. And that's like, and then the 20% that are successful, how successful? Like uber successful or like sold to a private equity firm for 5x. Both are great. Both have very different outcomes, right? So investors can underwrite risk with portfolio assumptions, right? Now that doesn't mean you aren't upset if one of the 80% doesn't work out, because like you're naturally gonna feel inclined to have a little bit of that taste in your mouth, right? As a founder, like you're underwriting everything, you're putting everything on the line to make it go, right? And your job is basically to run it through to the zero gas point until it's unable to, to go anymore, right? Yep. And you have to just be willing to sign up for that and put your whole body, mind, soul, family, house, whatever. I mean, people do a lot of crazy stuff to get everything across the finish line, right? I think, like you said, it's really important for founders to really ask themselves, is this the hill that I'm willing to die on, right? Yeah. My brother and I started the custom suit business with some business partners, and these are friends of mine, fraternity brother from college, love those guys. And I initially didn't say yes to founding the company because I was like, I just don't care enough about like suits. I don't wear suits. Like, look at me. Like, I'm not a suit guy. But I was like, oh, my brother runs e-commerce businesses, whatever. Like, maybe he'd be really great for it. So my brother decided to be the CEO, and I decided to be the co-founder. And between our business partners and us as the operators, I went and built the product and, all that kind of stuff. And then, but what's interesting is like over time, I actually got really into it, and like my position sort of flipped around, and I was like really ready to be all in. And so it's just fascinating, like, how we underwrite risk and how we underwrite passion, and like how willing are we to do these things. Sometimes we're not that willing, and then things change. Like So you really just have to ask yourself, is this the hill that I'm willing to die on? Or is this someone else's hill that I know, you know? And so I think aligning around those mission-driven, outcome-driven things is really important. Like, what are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go? What's the world that we see if we exist and are successful? Align around that, and the rest can follow.
Well, I think the most important word in that is underwrite, right? Like it just shows you're taking the time. Like you can take high risks, right? Like
That's correct.
It's a higher risk, but it's taking
That's correct.
to understand, like, what am I signing up for? Knowing 9 out of 10 startups fail, knowing it's difficult to raise capital, knowing there may be another competitor out there that you have to displace. It's just knowing what you're signing up for. It's not don't do it.
That's
it's
correct.
Just take the time to understand what you signed up for. I mean, every business I've started probably was a bad business idea, at the beginning, but it was just taking that action. And I really think the biggest risk in life is actually not taking risk at all. Like you have to take some.
I agree. I agree.
And to make an impact. But yeah, and again, love the diversity of perspectives you have, right? Teaching up and coming entrepreneurs. You've been on the VC side, you've started your own. So let's talk a little bit about the transition from venture to trade finance.
Yeah. Yes.
Your story sounds a lot like mine. Like no like common threads between those two, but you decide to make the jump anyway. But talk to us about that transition.
Yeah. So I kind of joke around that the risk continuum in my career is like I did the absolute most riskiest things on the planet very early on in my career. And every kind of step change that I make from a career perspective becomes like a little bit less risky. From like, I'm the lead singer of a band, riskiest thing you could ever do. But also like you're 16. So like the risk doesn't matter. Like you're 16. It's cool. Go be the lead singer of a band, right? But still like the riskiest outcome, like, I mean, talk about percentages, like good luck being Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like, or Brandon Boyd from Incubus, like good luck being that guy, right? All the way upwards to trade finance, where I only buy stuff that will virtually always like come through, and you're not risking buying, wondering if Boeing is gonna pay, like, or if the federal government is going to pay. Like, that's who we're underwriting, and that's what we're buying. So I went from, over the years, going from doing really, really risky stuff, startup, being a VC, investing in startups, to now I'm in trade finance. And the work that I do is, how do we remove every single piece of risk from the equation, underwrite it, securitize it, sell it to people who are like, this will last forever, or as far as forever can go. So underwriting, we were just talking about it, going like risk underwriting. Now I'm doing like very, very little risk in terms of underwriting. And it's about growth. It's about opportunity. It's about education. It's all these other things. So I'm really excited about that. How I got to this place was sort of fortuitous. I was working on investment deals, like deal by deal investment deals. And this company was introduced by a former business partner. And the idea was to spin up a private credit fund that would invest into Klear, which is a servicing company that is essentially running money on one side and buying assets on the other side, which is these receivables in trade finance, right? So we raised a little under 10 million for aerospace, defense, and insurance-backed receivables. And that's alongside a lot of other money that was not going to buy aerospace and not going to buy defense, right? So we raised that private credit fund. I learned all about trade finance in the course of like 8 months, like just learned like trade finance as an asset class, never knew anything about it, learned it back to front cold, raised capital for it, and got folks to invest into the private credit fund. And at one point along that journey, I said to the CEO, I was like, you don't have a head of sales. I would love to be your head of sales. And he said, you should be my head of sales. Sounds great. So took the role on, and and it's been going great so far. So I've been doing that since November of last year. And yeah, we were 217% to goal in Q1. So that's great. Got to continue the growth path into the rest of the year. But it's really great to be back operating in a startup, kind of singular mission, working with the team, operating every day, showing up to, achieve the mission of, helping reindustrialize the supply chains of America and beyond.
Yeah, we have even more similarities, which is, getting into industries we have no experience in. But what I've found is not having a ton of domain expertise allows you to come in with a fresh lens, right?
Yeah.
From the people that have been
Perspective.
drinking the same Kool-Aid every day.
That's right.
And you've been in multiple industries, both sides of the table. Has that experience helped you to come in objectively and make an impact?
I think it does. When I'm talking to a potential client of our company and I get to say, like, look, I was a VC for a decade. I was a founder. Now I'm doing this. This is how we help. This is the difference. It's non-dilutive. There's no equity. There's no strings attached. Like, I get to speak to clients and, folks that we are wanting to work with from a very, very real position of strength, experience, and know-how. And then also, after the call, I introduce them to a VC that I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a guy you should meet. And they're like, who's this sales guy that's introducing me to someone else? That doesn't, who does that? You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's that's just I don't know. I was a VC for 10 years. What do? You make introductions all day long. You're like, how do I use social capital to create good in the world, right? So I continue to do that even in my role, and I think again, coming from a different background and being in this space is actually very powerful, and it's for the reasons that you spoke of, is because you get to kind of take a different tact to the narrative that you present to people, and so I'm sure if a firefighter decided to become a police officer, that's pretty amazing, right? And the way that they would be policing is very different because they were a firefighter or a paramedic before. That's right. Cool. That's awesome. That's going to create a dynamic in your job that probably allows you to be an even better performer,
Yeah, and you started the show with a little plug for What the Truck, so we might as well talk about it a little bit. We're starting to get a lot of traction in manufacturing, aerospace, defense, roofing, just because, they're very patriotic and, 250th year anniversary of our country. But with What the Truck, we're really empowering veterans to transition from the battlefield to the boardroom. We've kind of dove into the entrepreneurial success rates are actually higher than veterans. They perform better at work. Have you seen veteran founded companies in your days as a VC, and did they stand out in any way that was better or higher achieving?
Oh yeah. I mean, what's really fascinating to me is there is this pressure that veterans can handle on top of accountability that veterans can handle on account of operational situational awareness that veterans can handle on top of deep expertise on how things work and how to get shit done.
Yeah.
I would invest in that founder that has all of that 9 times out of 10, right? Because they're operators, they're experts, they're able to perform where others can't, right? Yeah. And that's a major, major difference than, me raising money at 20 years old. Why should I give you money, bro? Who are you? You got a great idea. Congratulations. But guess what? It's harder than just having a great idea, right? Not that we didn't do a great job with what we had, but it's like the perspective and the depth and that opportunity, reward, risk, that continuum. Backing veterans can be a very, very good idea for the right business at the right time.
Yeah. No, and those success rates are, they're significantly better in certain areas. So it's just interesting why we don't fund more or have more initiatives for veteran founded companies. But back to, what you're up to now. So, working with manufacturers globally, and this can really apply to your startup, being a teacher, or professor at the University of Michigan. Go Blue, by the way. And how about that
Go
national
Blue.
championship in basketball? Just saying.
Oh my gosh.
We were due.
I was I was at the game. Of course I just drove down. I was like,
yeah,
4 hours from Ann Arbor, pregnant wife, love you. I gotta go. And she was fine. She was like, please go. And I just went, and then I actually got to drive one of my investors back on the way, because he was like, "Hey, are you going back to Detroit?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." And so I got some dashboard time with one of the check writers, which is just amazing. And he's a good friend as well. So yeah, it was everything about it. I met my nephew there, one of my best friends from high school. It was great. It was so awesome.
Well, where I was going with that, right, is every founder, or most, you see this, and I know on the VC side, you see this as well. Like, we're going to lose money for the first 3 years, but then magically in year 4, it's going to hit that hockey stick growth and everything's going to be fine. But how do you identify really like what your number one constraint is, and what are some tools that you can give founders to unlock that actual growth to scale?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that's fascinating about being an entrepreneur is trying to figure out who I should listen to. Okay. Super hard. It's very hard. Just having this coffee with entrepreneurs today, I said, this will be the hardest thing that you ever do, is figuring out who to listen to, who's right, who's wrong. Because everybody's got opinions. Oh, yeah. Your board's got opinions. Your investors have opinions. Your majority investors have opinions. Your minority investors have opinions. Employees, whatever. You have to have a serious true north to get through all of that. Take the decisions, take the advice, and figure it out. Once you start hitting the hockey stick, you got to really rely on the people who have been there before and know what they're doing, right? The CFO, the head legal counsel, or making sure you have the right legal counsel. You have to have the right sales guy. You have to have the right marketing gal. You got to have the right people in the right butts and the right seats. And guess what? The really sad thing is, you got to fire people as you go up the rungs and hire new people. Like, you have to understand, like, here's a guy or a gal that's going to be really great for 3, 4, 5 years, but then I'm going to have to get someone else, because I need someone else to come in here and keep building the company, right? Yeah. I had a CEO that sat with Eric Schmidt, and he said, Eric, what's the hardest part about being a CEO? He said, the hardest part about being a CEO is you got to fire everybody every 2 to 3 years. Because that thing that we did, it's over, and I got to do the next thing. And I need to bring the person on that's an expert. Here's your salary. Here's your stock. Great job. Congratulations. High fives. On to the next one. Mm-hmm. You're not here forever. You're here for a moment, right? And then you're going to go do something else that's amazing, right? But like, most people don't think like that, right? The other thing is you're going to hire people. They're not going to do well. You got to get someone else in. Hey, it didn't work out, but like, this just wasn't your thing. All good. Go to the next team, be a pitcher for the next team, So I think that it's there is a big part of being a successful entrepreneur is hiring right, choosing right, and leading people that are really competent. And so you got to lead through all of that.
Yeah. One of the things I tell people is you have to fire fast enough, right? Like, if you wait, or someone on your team comes to you, like, they're already feeling it and seeing it, and it shows indecisiveness as a leader, right? Like when it's time to move on. So you have to fire fast enough. And what you said, deciding who to listen to, is definitely one of the most difficult things. Like people are like, Adam, why don't you write a book on entrepreneurship? Like, I don't know what I would write because things change. Like just because it worked for me 2 years ago doesn't mean it's going to work for you in the current present time. There's other variables, right? Like,
That's
what's
right.
the market? What's the economy doing? So just because it worked for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. That's why you need an advisory board of people that can ride on the journey with you. You get that market data, you get the feedback, and then, see what adjustments you need to make, because being able to adapt is one of the most important things as an entrepreneur. It's never
100%.
set it and forget it thing. So I appreciate all of these insights so far.
Absolutely.
Been a great conversation, but what are you up to now? What's your current focus? And
Try to get better at golf, Adam.
yeah,
One of my buddies is
Who is
a professor. Yeah, who is it? Here you go. There you go. One of my dear friends is a very well-renowned researcher and clinical associate professor at Ross School of Business here in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan. And he is a best-selling author. His name is Marcus Collins, and he had this video about how it's so important, like even when you're established and growing and successful to whatever degree your success is, to like, it's so important to just like have some things that you just suck at.
yeah,
Like this sucks. Like this, I'm doing this new thing and it sucks. And I'm sitting there and I'm laughing and I'm like me starting to learn golf at age 36, like 2 years ago. Like golf sucks, dude. Like it sucks. And it's so fun and cool. And I love it. But it like, I just sit up there. I'm like, oh my God, like I suck, And it's this thing that you have to do as a human being, is sometimes you got to suck at stuff in order to learn and grow and get better and like actually go somewhere in life, And I mean, golf is truly recreational, doing taxes also sucks, right? So you gotta rip the Band-Aid off that, get it done. But like right now I'm trying to focus on like, what are my strengths and what are my weaknesses, and really lean into understanding those and continuously figuring out like, what are things that I should outsource, weaknesses, what are things that I should double down on, strengths, but where do I find that time in the middle to like suck at something that is truly good for me to take on? That's hard, right? I probably shouldn't become a CPA, right? Probably not something I should just like do at this point in my life and what I know I'm good at. Same with like, being a professional golfer. That's not going to happen for me, but it's a really good thing for me to go through and be a part of and have community around that. It's also pretty fun. So right now I'm really just focused on enjoying where I'm at in life, where I'm at in Ann Arbor, expecting father, close to family, enjoying my work, enjoying teaching. I'm really trying to be happy with where I'm at. I've spent a long time trying to get somewhere in life. And like now I've kind of arrived at this place where it feels pretty good. And like, I'm trying to actually enjoy that, which that's really, a lot of people don't actually talk about that. But I'm really excited about where I'm at, where I'm going. And I'm not trying to jigger the wheel too much, if that makes sense. Like I'm trying to just keep driving straight and get better at what I can.
Yeah, I mean, lots of good advice there. I'm still trying to figure out how to be happy where I am. Makes me a great entrepreneur and builder, but I am, with my old age now, kind of, all right, man, I can just enjoy this moment. And we're really enjoying everything we're doing with What the Truck, and I love building House of Bricks. Get to meet great people like you. So just as we close up here, give us quick recap on what you're up to at Klear, and if people want to reach out to you and connect with you, how do they do it, and and why? Who you looking to have a conversation with?
Yeah, thank you so much for that, and thank you for having me on. This is a great show, and
Thank
I'm
you.
happy that I could be a part of its legacy. Love what you want people to walk away with, and the topics and things that you support. Very, very vital to both our community here in Michigan and beyond. Um,
Thank you.
for me, I'm looking to work with folks that are industrial suppliers, small companies that sell to really big ones. And so my goal is to help find liquidity within your business to grow with non-dilutive capital. And that
Okay.
sounds very specific. And like, what does that mean? Like, my job is to basically pull capital out of stuff that you already have going in order for you to grow. So if you have that problem, I can solve that for you pretty well. If you meet those conditions, I'm your guy, right? That being said, I'm also very involved in Ann Arbor in the entrepreneurial community. Happy to speak with anyone that wants to chat about their business or their startup. You can find me on LinkedIn, just linkedin.com/in/Drew Leahy. And I'm always happy to be a member of this community. I'm a proud Michigander. If I can't help you, maybe there's someone I can point you to who can. Go blue.
Go blue. Hey, that's the best ending we can have. And we're going to ride that championship trophy into next year and do it again, right? So the moment the Lions host the Super Bowl trophy, that is when the world will end.
That's when things have we've really arrived,
and we're nowhere close. So, but
that's right.
Hey, thanks a lot, Drew, for being on today. And I'll just say I've just recently met Drew a couple months ago, but know people that know him. Great reputation, does and executes at a very high level. So if anything, reach out to him, have a conversation. And like you said, relationship capital is the most valuable capital. You never know what that one phone call can lead to. So appreciate you joining House of Bricks Live. Appreciate everyone joining.
Adam.
And we will
Thank you, Adam.
see y'all next week. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for having me. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.